The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog and join the Progressive Army. And now, ladies and gentlemen,
we are now about to witness the truth.
It's the Benjamin Dixon Show.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Benjamin Dixon Show. I am your host, Benjamin Dixon. It is Monday, February 13th, 2017. Thanks so much for joining us. I, as always, want to thank our patrons, everyone who supports the show. Thank you for being here. There's a lot happening in the news, so if you would allow me to jump right into it, the phone lines will be open later on in the show, somewhere in the second half, 857-600-0518 if you want to join us then to join the conversation. All right, let's jump right into the news. Let's talk about the Orville Dam. Mandatory evacuations remain in effect today for nearly 190,000 people in Northern California. There's a spillway, and I want to pull up an image on your screen so that you can see what's going on. There's a spillway serving the county's tallest dam. It developed a hole that threatened to release uncontrolled floodwaters. And so the mandatory evacuations, the emergency spillway off the Orville Dam was the second to fail in a matter of days after the dam's primary spillway developed a 200-foot long, 30-foot deep hole last week. According to a Red Cross spokesperson, she said that more than 500 people showed up at an evacuation center in Chico. I believe that's pronunciation. The shelter ran out of blankets, cots, and a tractor trailer with 1,000 more cots was stuck in the gridlock of traffic on Sunday night. It is a dangerous situation that people are trying to escape. Interestingly enough, there was a warning that was given by several environmental activists, I believe, back in 2005, predicting that this was going to happen to this particular dam, and it looks like this has come to pass. There's a quote here that said, quote, "When this incident occurred, it became apparent that we needed to act quickly." And they recognized and appreciated the frustration that people who have been evacuated must feel, that this was not the decision that they made lightly. This is coming from the officials there in the state. So 3 environmental groups, Friends of the River, the Sierra Club, and the South Yuba River Citizens League, filed the document stating, actually, these were the groups, they stated, quote, We're not going to get into recommendations or concerns that were voiced in the past. And actually, that was a response to the worries and the concerns that were brought up a long time ago. And so instead of, I guess this is not, what the official there is saying, that they're not going to litigate this right now. Of course, during the emergency is never the appropriate time to actually try to say he said, she said, or I told you so. But again, there were warnings about this previous to it actually happening. Officials and contractors were working feverishly to get as much water out of Lake Orville as possible by Thursday. But then another round of storms were expected to sweep across the area. So again, we're just going to, as with any other story that's moving like this, we'll keep our eyes on it as it progresses. All right. In other news, things that are happening around the country, this is I think sad is the most appropriate word that I can think of right now. The Sandusky family, if everyone remembers, if most everyone remembers Jerry Sandusky, the son, Jeffrey Sandusky, has been arrested for sexual assault of a minor, of an underage individual. One of his sons, one of Jerry Sandusky's sons, his adopted son, Jeffrey, who was 41, was charged today with sex crimes involving 2 girls. This is what, for about 5 years 4 or 5 years from when the former Penn State assistant coach was himself arrested for child molestation. In this case, it was his son, his adopted son, who was charged by state police and arraigned on 14 counts. He was jailed with the $200,000 bail, and Anyway, the police accuse him, and I'm just going to give you the facts on this because it's sad. It's really sad when you see this type of trait manifest itself. I'm not speaking on sadness towards the son, the culprit, more specifically towards the victims. There's always a victim in these stories, which makes it extremely sad. Sandusky was charged with solicitation of statutory sexual assault, solicitation of involuntary deviant sexual intercourse, 6 counts of unlawful contact with a minor, 2 counts each of solicitation to photograph or depict sexual acts, sexual abuse of children, and the corruption of minors. The police accused him of soliciting nude photos from a girl who at the time was 16-year-old last year and seeking oral sex in 2013 from her then 15-year-old sister. So prosecutors allege that Jeffrey Sandusky saw oral sex from the second girl, and who in 2013 again was 15 years old. And he is quite the grown 41-year-old man. We'll keep giving you updates at these stories as they come across. Again, it is what it is. All right, this next story is actually kind of crazy. It's actually quite salacious would be the word I want to use. This is a story about one of Donald Trump's potential picks, his pick for labor secretary, if I'm not mistaken, Puzder. I can never pronounce his name. I want to pull up an image of Puzder on your screen. So according to, and actually I can't find it, so we won't worry about it. According to Oprah Winfrey, of all people, Oprah Winfrey has given tapes with abuse allegations to the U.S. Senate. And this is according to Politico. So according to Politico, quote, senators in both parties have viewed an episode of the Oprah Winfrey Show, which Labor Secretary nominee Andrew Puzder, former wife, leveled allegations of physical abuse against him, according to sources. So the video is many decades old. And it's not, they said it's, quote, not easily found. However, Oprah Winfrey's team has the video, and they have given the video to the Senate for them to review. Senator Patty Murphy of Democrat of Washington, and she is a top Democrat on the Health, Education, and Labor Pensions Committee. That committee is who's going to vote ultimately on Puzder. She says she was deeply, quote, deeply troubled by the video. She went on to say, quote, it is important for us to know all the information about any candidate that comes before us. Yeah, I think that's that's fair. I'm amazed that he would allow himself to be put on the national stage like that, knowing a video like that exists. Right. So some of us know about the things that we've done in the past, and we know good and well, we know good enough not to get involved in politics. Right. You know, if you got a video out there of you doing something, partying and, at a club here with women there and you're married, then not to get into politics. But some people, and this is not a camcorder video, let alone a cell phone video. This was a Oprah Winfrey episode like this. So it's not something you're surprised about. This is something exists. And yet you allow yourself to be nominated to be the labor secretary, notwithstanding all of the other things that are problematic with his politics, his views towards labor, his actual disdain for labor. We talked about this when he was first nominated. I mean, he actually has I would say, a deep-seated animosity towards labor and the labor unions. So notwithstanding all of those problems, dude has a video, he might, this is like having a sex tape and going up to try to become a cabinet member. But he has a video on the Oprah Winfrey Show of his wife accusing him of being abusive. So, we'll see if this actually has any effect on the Republican Party. We've gotten past the point. We've jumped the shark. We've gotten past the point where it seems like anything matters. Nothing matters. Nothing is problematic. Everybody can get away with just about anything. Hell, Donald Trump just received a security briefing on North Korea's nuclear test, or their ICBM test, while having dinner at Mar-a-Lago, with people's cell phones out. So if Donald Trump could get away with that, then it's a good possibility that Puzder could get away with being a wife beater, or at least an alleged wife beater. His wife accusing him of abuse, but we'll see. There are a couple of Republican senators who are not necessarily in the books, in the bank, rather, is the phrase I'm looking for Puzder. So there's Collins, there is Murkowski of Alaska, there's Isaacson of Georgia, and Tim Scott of South Carolina. They've all said that they're not decided on Puzder. So we'll see if this has enough effect on them to actually keep their vote away, to withhold their support. But what's most likely going to happen, if this story develops into anything, what's going to happen would be that he'll withdraw his name from the nomination, right? I doubt very seriously that he will allow, Puzder or Trump for that matter, will allow his nomination to go to a vote where he would get voted down. But it's amazing. Like, why would you let it get this far if you've got a tape with Oprah Winfrey? Even if it is 20 years ago, we still have the tape. It's an amazing story. All right. In other news, so there's a lot of contention about Donald Trump's immigration ban, not just the immigration ban, but more specifically his crackdown on immigrants. People are here, illegal immigrants. We're just getting started with the raids, and the raids that Donald Trump has orchestrated, or at least his ICE department has orchestrated, have been beyond the pale. Now, a lot of people are going to say, oh, yeah, but, what about when Obama did it? Well, OK, so let's discuss it. So there have been, just over the past week, there have been arrests of hundreds of immigrants in a large scale raid under the Trump administration. But the crackdowns were just the beginning, right? This is just getting started. And Donald Trump has the need. And the most interesting thing about this story is that Donald Trump has the need to appear, or actually be, more draconian than Obama was. And I mentioned this last week, but it's very interesting. There was an immigration attorney being interviewed on NPR, and she described how basically ruthless the Obama administration was with regard to deportations. And she said at the time that it couldn't possibly get any tougher. So she's curious as to what Trump will actually do to distinguish himself. But Trump is having to distinguish himself because he wants to be, he wants to show that Obama was weak on deportations, even though Obama was anything but weak. And so the last week of ICE raids, over, I think, 600 people, hundreds of people were deported in a single week. And this is the signal that it's just beginning, because he has a desire to distinguish himself from Obama. So he's got to outdo Obama on the deportations. Now, I say it like that because there are a lot of people who are spending a lot of time saying, oh, but Obama did X, Y, and Z. Here's my question to you. If you opposed it underneath Obama, aren't you going to oppose it now? Especially with the escalation of it. Or do you just want to point out that Obama did X, Y, and Z, but you're not going to say anything about President Trump, who's going to do X, Y, and Z squared? That was for free. So in a statement on Monday, the Homeland Security Secretary John Kelly confirmed that more than 680 immigrants were swept up in a, quote, targeted enforcement operations across several cities, including L.A., Chicago, Atlanta, San Antonio, and New York City. This was a part of the expansive executive order signed by Donald Trump that allows a, quote, significantly broader population of immigrants to be picked up for deportation. Donald Trump has signaled that he has every intention of using that authority to carry out his campaign pledge to, quote, deport millions of foreigners from the United States. This is according to Sean Min Kim and Ted Hassan of the Politico. So, you know, this is just week one of the executive order that he signed to kick this expansion of the deportations. I mean, you've seen the pictures, you've seen the videos. If you've been watching, you've been paying attention. This is a major crackdown. And if you're looking for scale and scope to compare to Obama, this should be your signal. The signal is Donald Trump wants to outdo Obama on deportations. Donald Trump wants to show that President Obama was weak on deportations. So what good does it do for us to sit here and just, I don't know, what is it, sitting on our moral high horse and say, oh, why are you complaining about Trump when Obama did this? Well, if you didn't like it when it was Obama doing it, how could you be silent or just sit back on your moral high horse and say, yeah, well, and provide cover? That's what it does. It provides cover for Trump to escalate this. And I'm sorry, if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a lot of voices out there. Anytime you point out what Trump is doing, they try to find a moral equivalent inside of the Democratic Party, particularly with President Obama. And what I found are more people are expending so much energy to fight the ghost of the Obama administration and not fighting what Trump is doing right now. Instead of fighting the people in power, they're fighting the people who were last in power. And that provides cover for Donald Trump to get away with stuff like he's doing. Immigration advocates say that they stepped up the enforcement amounts to a new deportation dragnet that's ensnaring otherwise, quote, law-abiding immigrants. So it's not just illegals that they're catching up in this quote unquote dragnet. Here's a quote from Ali Nourani. She said, in 4 weeks, we've seen 3 incredibly harsh executive orders targeting the immigrant community. The executive director, Ali Nourani, is executive director of the National Immigration Forum. She went on to say that, quote, this is what he campaigned on, and now the country has to deal with the consequences. Again, to drive the same point home, are we going to wait till the numbers of Trump's deportations and his crackdown, his draconian crackdown, which is catching not only illegal immigrants, but legal immigrants? Are we waiting for his numbers to match Obama's? We'll get there sooner rather than later because he has escalated the rate at which we're deporting people. It has increased underneath Donald Trump. Anyway. All right. One last quick rundown story. Actually, 2 more rundown stories. But this one is near and dear to my heart. So there's a pilot who scared her passengers, not only because of how she was dressed in plain clothes and had access to the cockpit, but she went on a rant about Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, how they were both liars. She started talking about her divorce. Here's a picture on my screen of the pilot. And so people started deboarding the plane. Now, listen, if you've been listening to me any amount of time, you know I have a little problem with flying. I'm going to get over it, right? You know, people have been inviting me. I've missed several engagements across the country because I'm chicken shit and I don't like to fly. But had I been on this plane, I would have teleported my ass right out of my seat and appeared somewhere back in my bed, somewhere so I could get under my blankets, because this shit is crazy. The pilot was eventually removed from the plane. The plane was headed to San Francisco International Airport. She showed up dressed like a civilian. And she went on a rant about how she didn't vote for Trump. She didn't vote for Hillary Clinton. They're both liars. Both of them were, quote, assholes. And then she started ranting about her divorce. She started off by saying that she started discussing her divorce in front of all of the passengers on the plane. And when you think about it, the level of stress, actually, there's no rationalizing this, right? I'm mighty impressed by the passengers who sat there and listened to the rant. I would have been off the plane as soon as I saw her in plain clothes talking about she's the pilot. Because the hell, no, I'm sorry, I'm straight. But then also to think about how unstable she was in that moment. The last thing that anybody should want to do, especially me, is to get 30,000 feet in the air with someone who is visibly shaken and emotionally distraught. So passengers started tweeting about it. As she was ranting, they started tweeting the airlines, United Airlines, and started telling people what was going on. And eventually she was removed from the plane, and they boarded another plane to get to their destination. One of the passengers said, quote, being a pilot is a tough and stressful job. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is United Airlines. They said, quote, being a pilot is a tough and stressful job. This particular pilot did not seem emotionally equipped to do the job that day. And I hope that she gets the help that she probably needs. And actually, let me correct myself a second time. That was one of the passengers, not United Airlines. United said that they're going to discuss the issue with the pilot. I can't imagine for the life of me that this pilot will still have a job. At a minimum, she needs to take about a year off and get some stuff together. But I will not be flying that airline. But then, damn, if they fire her and she gets hired by another airline, I won't know what airline she's on. The hell am I gonna do? Anyway, all right, folks. We'll take some callers here in a moment. One last story that is actually sad and funny at the same time. This is a story about voter fraud, actual voter fraud. We found a case of voter fraud in the United States of America. And it's somewhat of a sad story. I'm going to be honest with you, because it's a sad story because it is the person who is going to go to jail for this. She's likely to get deported because of this. She's an immigrant, and she was a resident, but not a citizen, and she did not have the ability to vote. Her attorneys say that she didn't know that. All she saw was all of her documentation that says she was a resident. Here's the irony of the story, and I want to pull up a picture of this individual. The irony of the story is that out of the 5 elections that she voted in, all 5 elections she voted for Republicans. All right, so she's from Texas, and this is according to the Washington Post. Rosa Marie Ortega, she's 37. She's a resident of Tarrant County, Texas. She was sentenced on Wednesday by a jury. In 2015, she applied to vote in Tarrant County and was marked on her application that she was not a citizen, and her application was rejected. 5 months later, she tried again. So I guess she was listening to some messaging, right? She had to get out to vote. The second time she marked that she was a citizen, it was accepted. She's voted in 5 elections since 2004, and each time she only voted one time, right? She wasn't going, like they claim, she wasn't going precinct to precinct. She voted one time in 5 elections since 2004. But every single election that she voted in, she voted for the Republican Party. In 2012, she voted for Mitt Romney. In 2014, here's the greatest twist of irony. She voted for Ken Paxton, a Republican. Just had to point that out. A Republican who is the Texas Attorney General. This is the same guy who is ultimately putting her away. And ultimately, she will be deported after she serves her time. So one of the few cases that we've ever found in the United States about voter fraud is a person who voted with the Republican Party every single time. And one of the people she voted for is actually the Attorney General that is going to imprison her as well as deport her when her time is over. Now, again, I'm not mocking the individual because perhaps she, according to her attorney, she didn't know. Right? Okay. Unfortunately, in the United States, ignorance of the law is not a defense. So she is going to spend time in jail, and she's likely going to be deported after the fact. According to her attorney, he said she had, quote, she had no ulterior motive beyond what she thought mistakenly was her civic duty. So it is, not to mock her at all. But the irony, once we finally find a case of voter fraud that they swear is an epidemic, it's a person who's supporting the Republican Party. Fate, it would seem, is not without a sense of irony. All right. Let's keep trucking. I've got like at least 8 more stories to get through tonight. We'll take some calls. Maybe we'll get some of your comments from YouTube and from Facebook. Hello to everyone on Facebook. Thanks for tuning in. Everyone listening live on Spreaker. Definitely appreciate you guys. I want to take a pause here to thank all of our patrons. Thank not just our patrons, everyone. Today is our first episode in year 3. We're starting year 3. Yes, last Thursday was our 2nd year anniversary. So this is the first show. I've got some new introduction music I think I might want to test out with you guys. Maybe I'll just, play it tomorrow or something. But we're going to rebrand everything and new logos. Just starting a brand new start. That's all, to keep it going, to keep it moving. Thanks for your support. Thanks to the Progressive Army. This is the first full year anniversary of the Progressive Army. We're starting year 2 with the Progressive Army, but we've done so much in such a little time that I want to just really give a shout out to the whole team. Salam Marcos, David Grossman, Anoa Changa, Brandon Sutton, Nick. What the hell is Nick's last name? Nick, you know your last name. Jamie Miller, Raven, Pamela Elaine. Just so many names that I really should not have started naming them from memory because I knew I wasn't going to finish it all. But big shout out to everyone who's ever written for the Progressive Army, everyone who's making the site what it is. We're going to keep moving and keep doing what we do. And we can't do it without you, the listener. The listener, we can't do it without you, whether you're a patron or not. We can't do it without you. But if you are a patron, we have some bonus material that we're going to get to your way. All right, let's keep trucking. So speaking of voter fraud, I want to pull up a clip of Donald Trump's Minister of Truth on it's a combination of all of his clips from the Sunday shows, because there's this belief, it's almost a religious belief at this point, that voter fraud is happening on such a large scale that it warrants the most draconian policies imaginable. And I don't only want to talk about the substance of the claim and the lie and the falsehood of the lie that he gave over and over again on yesterday, but I actually want to talk about the individual, because you can't possibly watch or listen to this clip without identifying that this guy, Stephen Miller, has some serious problems. And because he's such a high-ranking official, or he's so close to Trump, it's probably more accurate, it's a problem that all of us now have. Let's listen to this clip. It's a little long, but let's listen.
Do you feel like you and your staff there that you're in control of events at the White House? I think to say that we're in control would be a substantial understatement. We have equal branches of government in this country. The judiciary is not supreme. There's no such thing as judicial supremacy. What the judges did, both at the 9th and at the district level, was to take power for themselves that belonged squarely in the hands of the President of the United States.
Stephen, the 3 judges say you're flat wrong.
No, the 3 judges made a broad, overreaching statement. This is an ideological disagreement between those who believe we should have borders and should have controls, and those who believe there should be no borders and no controls. This is a judicial usurpation of power. The end result of this, though, is that our opponents, the media, and the whole world will soon see, as we begin to take further actions, that the powers of the president to protect our country are very substantial and will not be questioned. And the bottom line is the president's powers in this area represent the apex of executive authority. We will have unquestioned military strength beyond anything anybody can imagine. We have a president who has done more in 3 weeks than most presidents have done in an entire administration. Saying that we stand with our ally, having the 2 men appear on camera worldwide to all of planet Earth, was a statement that will be understood very well by North Korea.
All of planet
I'm not
Earth.
going to make a comment on that. I don't have any information on it. I do want to say that Sean Spicer, as always, is 100% correct, and that what he said is true and important, and I agree with it.
So then you are making a comment on it.
I'm not going to make any new comment. It is a fact, and you will not deny it.
Well, I won't.
There are massive numbers of non-citizens in this country who are registered to vote. That is a scandal. We should stop the presses. That's the story we should be talking about, and I'm prepared to go on any show, anywhere, anytime, and repeat it and say the President of the United States is correct 100%.
Bruh, this dude has issues. Like, he has, like, very deep-seated issues. The mashup that you just watched was a segment from Morning Joe, and even Morning Joe and Mika Brzezinski, like, they, you know, not that they're the measuring bar, but this guy, Stephen Miller, who is an assistant to the president, who has the ear of the president, and who has the unwavering support of the president, has some deep emotional issues as well as ideological issues, philosophical and political issues, because the president of the United States is not above reproach. He is not unquestionable. That's not how our government works. It's not how any of this works. In fact, everything that he said there was almost 100% wrong. Not only in terms of the context, not only politically and ideologically, but it was also wrong substantively. He's outright lied in several components, several segments. And we're getting to this weird place where, we have arrived. We have fully arrived in this place where truth does not matter. Verifiable truth. We're not talking about these lofty philosophical truths where maybe it's half full, maybe it's half empty. No, we're talking about really tangible, practical truths that you can count on one hand. We're getting to the point where that doesn't matter because they say it so confidently and they say it with so much arrogance, and they have a devoted following of sycophants who believe them no matter what. So, of course, it's easy for Stephen Miller to get away with this because he has hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of right-leaning conservative Tea Partiers, idiots, because that's all you can call them at this point. When he has the support of a large swath of America who believes these lies. They believe it like a religion. They believe this more than they believe in Jesus. They believe voter fraud is, they believe people are busing illegal immigrants from precinct to precinct. And this is how Donald Trump justifies losing New Hampshire. Before I go any further about Stephen Miller, his background, who he is, and his problems, I want you to understand that these people are coming out pandering to the ego of Donald Trump. This isn't about this has nothing to do with actual voter fraud or what's really their election fraud. It has everything to do with Donald Trump can't imagine that he actually lost. Not only imagine, he can't accept the fact that he lost the popular vote. So he's willing to spread propaganda and outright lies, which will result in actual policies that will lead to the suppression of the vote, particularly of minorities, he's willing to do this and to send out his minister of truth, it was Sean Spicer, but I guess Sean Spicer got to the point where he couldn't keep telling this lie, so he brought out Junior, Stephen Miller, and so he rolls these people out to start these national conversations, to create the feedback loop, to create the self-fulfilling prophecy. And not even a self-fulfilling prophecy, is straight out a feedback loop where they say something, the people believe it, and because the people believe it, they continue to say it. All because of Donald Trump's ego. He can't believe that he lost New Hampshire. He can't believe that he can't accept. He can't allow it to exist in the atmosphere that he lost the popular vote. So this is what Stephen Miller came out to do. And anyone who is remotely connected to reality and has any connection to what the world actually could be and what the world has been at previous times, you see this approach. You see this bulldogged approach where they're trying to steamroll their arrogance and their propaganda and their lies. They're trying to make it truth by force. And they're trying to intimidate people. And Junior, I keep calling him Junior because he's legit. He's like 31 years old. You know, he doesn't realize that he stepped into a grown man's game. There's nobody. He's not impressing anybody but the people who already believed him. But so a couple of things, a little bit about him. So this guy, Stephen Miller, is from Santa Monica, California. I believe he went to Santa Monica High School, the huge high school with like 4,300 people, students. With that many students, of course, people remember him. He's very young, so a lot of people remember him. I'm going to share a couple of tweets from people who remembered him. But he also went to Duke, and while he was at Duke, he had a relationship, a bromance, I guess, with a newly famed white nationalist, and we'll discuss that. But before we get there, here are his two major claims. His two major claims in this nice little mashup that we just watched were that 14% of non-citizens, and this is what he said in the full statement. He said, quote, "A study shows that 14% of non-citizens, according to academic research, at a minimum, are registered to vote, which is an astonishing statistic." Now, this is his claim, and this was quickly debunked by a guy named Rex Hupke in the Chicago Times. And this claim that he has is based on research, but the researchers themselves say that these are numbers that the right and the Republican Party in America have intentionally used to forward their agenda. And actually from the Chicago Times, it reads, it says, quote, "The researcher in the study that Miller cites actually stated that on the right, there has been a tendency to misread our results as proof of massive voter fraud, which in their eyes, they don't believe exists." The researcher that this guy quotes to try to make us have this overwhelming fear that 14% of non-citizens are voting. In actuality, they're saying that 14% of non-citizens are registered to vote, but the people who did the research themselves concluded that they are not voting, that it is not actual voter fraud. And it could be compared to the case that we just got through talking about of the individual from Texas who was registered to vote, kept trying to register to vote as a resident, as a legal resident, but not yet a citizen. Either way it goes, they are not actually voting. And the researcher himself debunked his claim. The second claim that Stephen Miller put out, he said that people are busing voters from neighborhood to neighborhood, from neighboring states into New Hampshire, and that's why Trump lost, and it's also why Kelly Ayotte, who was running for state office in New Hampshire, that's why she lost. He said that, quote, "There's a very real, very serious problem." And I want to pull up a tweet here because I want to pull up a tweet from an individual who actually works in the system there in New Hampshire, a Republican. I think Tom Rath. The former Republican Attorney General of New Hampshire, this is what he said. He said, "Let me be unequivocal as possible. Allegations of voter fraud in New Hampshire are baseless, without any merit, and it's shameful to spread these fantasies." But we knew that already. I didn't have to actually go over that, because we all know, if you've been paying attention, that between 2000 and 2014, over 1 billion ballots were counted and checked and cast. And out of all of those instances, out of 1 billion ballots, they found 31 or 35 instances of voter fraud. You stand a greater chance of getting struck by lightning. You have a better chance of crashing in an airplane. I don't know why I just use that as an example, as much as I hate flying, but you have a better chance than you would finding examples of voter fraud, especially large scale. We're talking about millions. They're saying up to 3 million people voted illegally, and nobody noticed. And so, because nobody noticed, here comes Donald Trump and his Ministry of Truth to find out what's happening. All right. So substantively, he's completely bereft of anything. He's completely lying. He's being Donald Trump's lead propagandist, because Sean Spicer, I guess, just couldn't stomach forwarding this lie anymore. So you have to ask yourself the question: what type of person can get up here and not only spout this level of lie, or lies, plural, but also do it with this? I mean, this dude is straight out of, 1984 is the one we always go back to, but this guy is straight out of he is a caricature of what a propagandist would be in a book like 1984. He is a caricature of what you would think a propagandist would be. He's exactly the type of tone, tenor, and demeanor of this type of sociopath. So a couple of people who know him saw him on TV and said, you know what? Let me explain the type of person this Stephen Miller is. So this is from a guy, and I'll pull it on your screen and I'll read it to you. This is a guy from Charles Gould on Twitter at Middle Kid Gould. He said, at a school of 4,300 students, he was hands down the most unliked person on campus. Speaking of Stephen Miller, whenever I was feeling unpopular or nerdy, I would just think, at least I'm not Stephen Miller. And I would immediately feel better. This is good shit. It's hilarious. He said he developed way too fast. And this is why he looks like he's 50 years old today, but he's only 31. He had a full blah, blah, blah. Okay, I don't really care about this one. But the last line here was, no, I'm not even going to read the last line. You could see it on the screen. All right, the third one is actually the one that's important. Number 3, and this is by Charles Gould. On Twitter, you can go find it yourself at Middle Kid Gould. He said he was an unabashed racist. No, I'm not being oversensitive, and no, I'm not using the R word here where it doesn't apply. In private conversations, he was constantly making disparaging remarks about the African American, Latino, and Asian students at our school. All right. The last one. This is the one. If you want to know who Stephen Miller and the rest of them are, this is the one. He thrives on people not liking him. At a certain point in his life, he realized he would just be an insignificant little shit unless he was able to piss people off. While giving a speech on why he should be the school's president, he was booed off stage by 4,300 people when he said, "Why do we have to clean up after ourselves when we pay janitors to do that?" I saw him later that day, and he talked about how well he thought the speech had gone. Yeah. This is the type of mentality. This is the only reason, and I really argued with myself. I said, do I want to read this guy's, high school recollection of Stephen Miller? Do I really want to read that, or is it just, kind of, TMZ shit. But when you watch the video and you watch his demeanor and you watch his approach and you watch his casual dismissal of the Constitution, you watch his casual dismissal of any just decency and decorum and respect for the truth, and unashamedly takes these talking points, which are glaring lies, and he shoves it down the throat, or attempts to shove it down the throat of the media. You have to consider where he comes from. When you see those things, you realize Charles Gould's account of him is not too far off. And this is who Donald Trump is surrounding himself with. And if you extrapolate from that, you really can understand all of the alt-right that surrounds Donald Trump. All of the people who are so in love with the fact that Donald Trump is here to allow them to be as disgusting of human beings as they can, and to get successful, because this insignificant little shit, as Charles Gould identified him as, now is in the White House. And now he has the ability and the power to carry out his agenda and to carry out his grudge. I mean, this kid has a grudge. He's got something to prove, and he's trying to prove it on the backs of the United States of America, of Americans. But there's another part of this guy, and maybe I'm not being too hard. He stepped out here. This is his role. This is what he wants. He wants the attention, so let's give him the attention. This guy is also connected to white supremacist, white nationalist, neo-Nazi Richard Spencer. According to Mother Jones, who did a lengthy profile on Richard Spencer, the two of these kids got along really well, quite swimmingly, while they were at Duke University together. And I want to pull it up on your screen for you so that you can see it for yourself. This is according to Mother Jones. Spencer was more explicit about his views on race and immigration with members of the Duke Conservative Union, where he says he clicked with a columnist for the campus newspaper and fellow DCU member named Stephen Miller. Miller, who would earn acclaim for standing up for white lacrosse players falsely accused of gang rape by a black woman, is now a senior advisor to the Trump administration. It continues. Spencer also defended the Duke lacrosse players, writing about the case for the American Conservative, but that's not the only reason he and Miller hit it off. Spencer says Miller helped him with fundraising and promotion for an on-campus debate on immigration policy that Spencer organized. Skip a few lines. Another former member of the DCU confirmed that Miller and Spencer worked together at the event at DCU. According to a past president for the group, Miller denounced multiculturalism and expressed concerns that immigrants from non-European countries were not assimilating. A little bit more about the man who works with President Trump. Spencer said, "It's funny that no one's picked up on the Stephen Miller connection. I knew him very well when I was at Duke, but I'm kind of glad that no one's talked about it because I don't want him to harm Trump." When you put the pieces of the puzzle together, you can understand why Donald Trump loves this guy, loves him so much that, he sent out, of course, Donald Trump sent out a tweet supporting him, saying, "Congratulations, Stephen Miller, on representing me this morning on the various Sunday morning shows. Great job." Donald Trump has surrounded himself with fellow men children, people who have been, who were the losers on their campus, in their school, people who only found, the only way they found to survive the fact that they were losers was by intentionally being the person that everyone hated, by getting a kick out of it. And this is exactly what the alt-right community is. This is exactly what 4chan is about. It's about people who are losers for whatever reason. I mean, everyone can't be, but finding a community amongst themselves and getting joy out of being the hated. And that's fine. That's the psychological profile of them. Put that aside. Now this guy is in the White House, and he has no qualm whatsoever with pandering lies, peddling lies, and forwarding propaganda. That's Stephen Miller, the Minister of Truth, America's Minister of Truth. All right. I still have a long way to go, but I've had callers who have been online almost the entire show. So I'd be a complete jackass if I didn't at least get one of them here. Caller, you're live on the air. What is your name, comment, and or question?
Hey, Benjamin, this is Steve. Congratulations on starting year 3, and I've been listening to you for about a year. And I would be interested to see on the Progressive Army, Anoa and Brandon interviewed that young man who pressed Nancy Pelosi, and it was a brilliant interview, and it'd be pretty fascinating to have him back as a regular guest as well.
Oh, yeah. No, we put that out there.
Also
Trevor, I think is his name, if I'm wrong. But, yeah, we'd love to have him on anytime. What's on your mind, though?
And just real quick, I guess another connection. Stephen Miller was a Jeff Sessions' former communications director, and he was press secretary for Michelle Bachmann, and he did fundraising for Richard Spencer. And the connections, it's just such a big, the GOP is just a big incestuous club, and they just circulate themselves from
I'm sorry, I thought you were going to say
person to person, and it's
No, I'm sorry. I thought you were going to say a circle jerk, but go ahead.
No, I mean, they are, but I'm not going to say it. You can say that. So, but yeah, it's in the fact that the conservative voters, love these people.
Yeah.
And then try and say, oh, I voted for them and I'm not racist. Like, I can't take them seriously. And
not at all, man.
I just wanted to say that. Can I make one more quick comment?
Yeah, make it. You've been on hold for a long time, man. Go ahead. What's on your mind?
Just a couple of us on the chat said maybe it would be fun to have Umar and Bryce on as guests of the show. So,
hey, I'm game for that. Let's see what we can do, man. Thanks so much. Awesome. Thanks for the call. Yeah, that's that's the truth, man. This is what the Republican Party and the craziest thing about it is that they are so willing to embrace the exact thing that they accused Obama of. Like they are so happy to have someone ruling by edict. Like they are celebrating the executive orders when every step of the way they were swearing that President Obama was some type of brute dictator because he signed a couple of executive orders. And now they're they had problems with President Obama taking vacations, right? Because, you can't be a black guy and next take a vacation on the taxpayer's dime, but Donald Trump has gone golfing almost every weekend that he's been president, and he's not even president for a full month yet. Not even a full month. But that's okay. And to point out their hypocrisy is absolutely nothing new. We know that they are hypocrites. We know, but now we know that they are happily hypocritical. They're happily hypocritical. We know that. That's besides the point. The point is this: they are dangerous, and they have to be beaten. They have to be beaten at the booth, at the voting booth. They have to be beaten at the polls. They cannot be allowed to remain in power. They got this time. They won this round. Great, fine. It is what it is. We have to push back against them and not allow ourselves to fight an asymmetrical battle with them, where they are free to be hypocrites. They are free to use lies. They're free to use propaganda. They're free to use fear mongering. They're free to use dog whistles, racist dog whistles. They're free to be abusive in their speech and their jargon. They're free to get on the platforms and out transgender students at a school, or to out illegal immigrants or undocumented workers. They're free to do all those things. And yet when we push back with any fervor or any oomph, all of a sudden we tie our hands behind the back and say, oh no, we can't do that, because if we fight back like that, then we'll become the monster. Meanwhile, the monster is in complete control of the state houses across the country, the state senates across the country, the governor's seats across the country, the White House, the Senate, the House of Representatives, and soon to be the Supreme Court. We cannot. This is not about. The only reason I want to point out their hypocrisy is because they don't care that they're hypocrites, and they don't care if they have a true dictator in the White House. All they care about is their perceived victory. Even if that perceived victory undermines their best economic interests, they don't care. We are in such a hyper-partisan world that all that matters to them is that they beat the Democrats, even at their own expense. even if Obamacare is overturned and tens of thousands of people die every year, including people who voted for Donald Trump, so that he could overturn Obamacare or repeal Obamacare. They have a sickness, and they are not qualified to lead this country. In no uncertain terms, look at Donald Trump this weekend in Mar-a-Lago. This man has lost his mind, if he ever had one. And he's bringing down not only the character and the dignity and the stature of the office of the presidency, if anyone even cares about that. He's not only bringing that down, but he's exposing America to unique dangers. I mean, you had people taking pictures with their cell phones of conversations that Donald Trump was having with regard to North Korea. You have people taking pictures and naming by name the individual who carries the nuclear football behind the president every day, all day long. Not only taking pictures, but posting it on Facebook. So now we know that the guy, if he's still there, I hope he's not. I hope he's been replaced and sent somewhere else to do something else. That's a great honor for him because it's, but we know his name is Rick. He's a young black guy. Looks like he's about in his 30s. He looks like he's about 6'3", 6'2", maybe. Looks, good looking young dude. Just looks like a regular kid carrying the nuclear football all over social media. So not only is Donald Trump devaluing the office of the presidency, he is endangering America because he is an uncouth buffoon. And it's going to be a long 4 years, but I know that whoever primaries him from the Republican Party, which they should, and whoever runs against him from the Democratic Party, all they're going to have to do by then, if America's still standing, is say, we want to bring dignity back to the White House. That's your entire campaign. We want to bring dignity back to the White House because we're tired of that shit now. But by 4 years from now, how tired will America be of this deranged, unhinged, narcissistic man baby, bitch baby Donald Trump ranting on Twitter about all of his beefs with the media, sending out his propagandists, his ministers of truth to push and peddle lies, carrying out their beef, their individual beef with individual reporters and news outlets nationally, making it a national issue, all the while embarrassing America in front of foreign heads of state. All the while, most importantly, if anything else matters, this is the only thing that matters, he is endangering the United States of America. Somebody start your campaign. Bring dignity back to the White House. And then we can debate about whether or not it has ever been a dignified office in the first place.
The Benjamin Dixon Show is only possible with listener support. Go to www.thebenjamindixonshow.com to register for our blog, join the Progressive Army, and support The Benjamin Dixon Show. It's Ben Dixon! If you like this episode, be sure to share, like, and subscribe.
Consider becoming a Patreon. Go to www.patreon.com/The BPD Show and support The Benjamin Dixon Show.